Welcome to SC21 TV. I'm your host, Charla Bokikio. We're live at the SC21 TV news desk, meeting leaders in high-performance world of computing. With me now is Gary Grider with the High Performance, let me look at my notes, the High Performance Computing Division at Los Alamos National Laboratory. Welcome, Gary. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Good. You are a long-time member of SC, correct? You've been coming to these for a really long time.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your day job and your involvement in SC over the years. How long have you been coming and whatnot?
Okay. So I run the High Performance Computing Division at Los Alamos, so we're responsible for the buildings, the power, the cooling, the machines, running the machines, serving the users that run on the machines and so forth. My division is several hundred people that do that. It's a pretty large environment. It's like 60 megawatts total on site, so it's relatively large.
Yeah.
We've been at this a really, really long time. We started computing in the 40s. An interesting tidbit, my mentor when I went to the lab was a lady named Marge Devaney, and she had a box of cables in her office, and they were used to program ENIAC. So she actually flew to Pennsylvania and ran problems on the first computer in the United States.
Wow.
Programming with cables.
Huh.
So it's a fascinating lady, off-scale smart lady. Anyway, we're a little bit of a different site. Our site runs weapon simulations mostly, and so it's a usual situation for us when we'll run a job and it'll run on 10,000 nodes and a petabyte of DRAM for a month or 2 or 6 months, which is unusual. Most supercomputing sites would never give that big of a piece of a machine to a single user for a year.
Yeah.
That's really unusual. So our machines are far more purpose-built for particular problems than they are general purpose for anybody to do science on.
Gotcha.
Because our mission is to, maintain the stockpile for the U.S. It's a little bit different kind of a place. It's science in the name of decision support as opposed to science for science sake, which is kind of different. So we have deadlines that aren't really publishing papers, but telling the Navy what to do. So
yeah, the stakes are a little different.
So it's a different place, which kind of is nice. It gives you some urgency, and the problems are very multidisciplinary and the like.
Yeah.
I have been coming to supercomputing for a long time. My first one was in '86.
Wow.
I've been to all but one, I think.
I'm sure they've grown quite a bit since then.
Yeah, the first one was about 600 people, and now they're usually over 10,000.
Right. We have an unusual situation this year, of course.
We do, yeah.
With the hybrid.
But it's really nice, actually, that it's in person a little bit again, at least, and it's different. The big vendors aren't as prevalent, so the smaller vendors are more prevalent, which is kind of a change.
Yeah, and I feel like those smaller vendors are getting an opportunity to be in front of more people.
Yeah, I think that's right, yeah.
Yeah. Excellent.
It's good.
So as the leader of the HPC division at Los Alamos, tell us about, what are you and your associates working on now? Any top priorities for you? You already mentioned a little bit about it, but is there anything kind of that's on the horizon for you all there?
Well, as I mentioned, the machines we buy are sort of purpose. There's a particular problem they're trying to solve. And that was true of our last machine, Trinity, which is still the largest memory from a memory size point of view machine. And it was purchased to solve a problem that was over 25 years old. We've been waiting to get a big enough machine to solve that problem for 25 years. So I think that's kind of interesting. And so the next machine we're putting in is a machine called Crossroads that we've been trying to get built for a while. And it, again, has a purpose. So we want to take a problem that ran on Trinity that it took 7 months to run. We need to run similar problems like that, but run them in about a third of the time. And so the machine, Crossroads, is about that.
Okay.
So we need to be able to produce results more in like a month as opposed to 7 months, so that they can do multiples of them in a year and learn from them. So Crossroads is going to be a relatively large machine, not big in flops. We don't care about flops. It's big in trying to get that job run, that problem run. We're also putting in a fairly large machine based on NVIDIA technology, the new Grace processor that they announced. And that machine goes in FY23. So Crossroads goes in 22, and the NVIDIA machine goes in 23. And that machine is really more about exploring future things, like how can we use artificial intelligence to guide our simulations to make them go faster, easier, better. We probably won't. We're not big users of AI and ML because we don't do all that much data science. It's simulations, what we do.
Right.
But those tools are good tools to try to use to help our simulations along.
Right.
And we also have just recently doubled the size of the lab, which is, it was big. It was the biggest lab already, and now it's twice the size. We took on a manufacturing mission for the weapons complex. And so we're starting to tie some of our computation into the manufacturing piece. And we'll probably use machine learning techniques for that.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty important thing for the nation. There's only 2 places in the nation that can manufacture what we're going to build. And it has to be done because the things are old and we need to replace them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, anyway, very, very mission focused at the lab.
Sounds like there's a lot of really great stuff happening and really important things at Los Alamos for sure. The last in-person event for SC was in 2019 in Denver. Has your approach and your work had to change much since those pre-COVID days?
Well, the way of work certainly changed. We have the classified site, so we have to have people on site. But the number of people we've had on site has gone down by, 3/4. A lot of people can do their, a lot of their work from home.
Right.
So we took advantage of that, and I think we'll take advantage of that going forward.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll be 3/4 of the people off site, but it'll be some amount.
Sure.
And the lab actually took advantage of that. So for the people that can work pretty much off site, because of this growth, this doubling of the size of the lab has been trying to hire about 1,000 people a year for the last several years, and actually are trying again the next few years because of this doubling. And having a place to put, extra several thousand people is not easy.
Right.
And so having people go home turned out to be a real win.
Yeah, it seems like a great solution.
It's a great solution for DOE
Absolutely.
to be able to manage that. So that's been actually a help, which is an odd way to think about it. But yeah, our work has changed a little bit.
Yeah.
But we still have, I have 24/7 operations. I've got people on call. I've got facilities people that have to make sure the pumps and the pipes are, all that stuff.
Right.
We've just had to manage the density of people on site.
Yeah. But there are, like you said, there are a lot of people that are absolutely a necessity to be in person.
There is, yeah. So we had that all along, all the way through the pandemic. We've had 24/7 support.
Right.
So forth.
I know you've been coming to these conferences for a really long time. So what are some of your highlights from this week? And being that it's the first hybrid, it's been different. Any particular highlights for you? Any takeaways?
Well, the location actually, is very walkable. So the city seems real friendly, and so that's nice. Again, like I said before, the big vendors are kind of missing, so we got to spend an awful lot of time with the small vendors, which I think is refreshing in a way.
Yeah.
Have I seen anything? I saw an awful lot of cooling technologies, which isn't too surprising given the densities that we're talking about.
Yeah. And that's kind of new this year?
Well, it seems like it's been on a ramp up for the last 5 years, but this year it's a bigger percentage of the show floor than I think it's ever been.
Okay.
Which is kind of funny. I mean, in the 80s, we used to cool all our machines in exotic ways.
Oh.
And then in the 90s and later, we we became non-dense and grew wide as opposed to grew up. And now we've run out of wide, and so we've got to start growing up again.
So you're back where
and
you
so
were.
we're back where we were, and which is kind of true in the computing industry. We go around in
Everything's
circles.
cyclical,
Yeah,
for sure.
And so that's interesting. I thought the immersion cooling, we've seen that before. We actually have had machines that were immersively cooled, but it's interesting to see them come back.
Yeah.
So that's probably the biggest surprise, I guess,
Biggest
is the
change.
number of, just the sheer number of, you know, facilities-related people here. That's
Gotcha.
kind of new. And actually the number of storage vendors compared to the other, of course, I think that's probably because the big vendors aren't here. But, so the ratios have changed.
Okay, yeah.
I suppose that'll change back next year, but
Yeah, I mean, what do you expect to see next year in Dallas as far as the, I mean, I guess the hope is that the in-person attendance goes up.
yeah. If it does, I imagine it'll be pretty much back like it was before.
Yeah, with the numbers being a lot bigger.
Yeah.
I guess, you know, everyone I've talked to has said certainly they found value in the fact that we're offering the hybrid because some people just can't come
Yeah,
in person.
I've got maybe 30 people here.
Yeah.
Normally I would have 150 or something.
Interesting.
And so those other people are virtual.
Yeah.
And you know, if you're just doing the, you know, the technical program and all you want to do is listen to paper talks, doing it from home probably is a reasonable thing to do.
Yeah, a similar experience.
If you're meeting with people and you're doing a lot of interactive stuff, you know, it doesn't work so well. So
if you need FaceTime in front of people and
so
really,
it's kind of nice that we tried this hybrid thing. I don't know that attendance will ever grow back to where it was once, maybe, but maybe that's okay. It could be better.
interesting.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see what happens when we get there.
Yeah.
So anything else you wanted to cover? Anything else you wanted to say about your work at Los Alamos or the conference in general before we wrap things up?
I can't.
And no is a fine answer. So on a personal level, I've been asking some of the folks that I've been talking to, what did you want to be when you grew up, when you were a child?
I've always been interested in math and science.
Really? Okay.
And so I guess I ended up where I wanted to be.
In your field? Yeah.
I don't think I ever imagined myself managing hundreds of people and that kind of thing. And
Right.
it's not clear that that's the fun part of the job anyway. Although, you know, there's rewards in that. But being near the technology, I think, is the thing that keeps me there probably.
Yeah. Great.
And it's interesting that that's what I was interested in, and that's where I ended up.
Great. Well,
it's a good thing.
you found your place in the world, and it sounds like you've had some really good success with it.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Good. Well, it's been great talking to you.
Yeah, thanks.
Enjoy the rest of the day, and I guess the conference is winding down.
Yeah, if you stick around and about noon, it'll start being.
Starts to get
It's very
torn
different,
down.
and how long it took to build it versus how long it takes to take it down is there's no comparison. So
Exactly.
it's kind of interesting to watch when you watch them tear it
Well,
down.
maybe I'll stick around and watch that process if they'll let me with all the forklifts and
Yeah.
stuff. All right. Well, thank you, Gary, so
Thank you.
much. For those of you watching, stay tuned today for the latest in high-performance computing from SC21 TV. Make sure to like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and plan to attend in person in Dallas, if it's possible for you, next November. I'm Charla Bokikio.